Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our trading room. Hang on here a second, get the screen share going on. All right, so let's take a look here. Yesterday, another one of those rather choppy, stagnant days. We had a big move out of the open, then before we closed the trading room, or just as we were closing the trading room, the market was starting to recover. So we made the swing lower, made the swing higher. Overall, a doji style day, volume still up a little bit. And as I've mentioned to you before, volume is a relative indicator. So typically we want to see big volume on big bars, little volume on little bars. And that's not one. Little volume on little bars. So when we get relatively high volume on small bars, that tells us that the market pressure is building. And just like shaking up a beer bottle, when you release that pressure, it's got to go somewhere. Not quite clear yet which way it wants to go. My personal bias is that the market may head lower. And that's more because of the breakout above the previous highs, above the contract highs back here. I think the market needs to retest that zone, which could see us trading back down somewhere around the 8,000 area. You got to be careful though. The market does take its time turning around, and more than a few times I catch myself getting ahead of the curve, which usually ends up costing me. All right. At the moment, however, the overnight fairly neutral. Here's, and relatively quiet actually. Here's the London Open. The market dips a little bit, recovers a little bit prior to the North American Open, but overall, pretty quiet little session. Looks like we're going to be in scalp mode for the better part of the morning, after which the market's going to move straight into trend mode. That's interesting. A lot of times there's a bit of a transition. It's not unusual to see it move from scalp to swing to trend. And what that suggests is that the market is going to smooth out a little bit, and vice versa. You can see it move from trend to swing to scalp, which suggests the opposite, that the market is going to become, market swings are going to become a little bit more frequent and a little more volatile. But we do have a little bit of a gap from where we left off yesterday. And we currently have a bit of a high, well, you know, the morning high, which we are retreating from. So a breakout above that high could be a valid signal to buy. Yeah, good advice here from Ron. Ron says, a fellow once told him, trade what's in front of you. That will help you with getting ahead of the market. Yes, my worst days have usually been when I've come into the market with some sort of notion of what the market should do. And of course, It never does what you think it should do. It will do what it will do. David says, Eric, yesterday you gave an excellent definition of a number 1 and a number 3 signal. What's the definition of a number 2 signal? Okay, we'll be getting to that here shortly. I just holding on here to see if we're going to get a signal lower, which will actually be a bit of a drawn out number 2 signal. All right, it looks like they're going to move back and forth here for a bit. So a number 2 signal, what is a number 2 signal? The number 2 signal is the counter trend signal for the Raptor. So you always need to have 2 components for each signal. The number 1 signal, you need the clouds to change direction. You need to have a pullback. And then once the programming parameters are met, you will produce a number 1 signal. A number 3 signal, you have to have a trend and you have to see the market pull back to the hard edge, either the fast one or the slow one. And then once again, if the programming parameters are met, you will produce a number 3 signal. So what's a number 2 signal? The number 2 signal is the counter trend signal. And obviously, in order to have a counter trend, you must first have something resembling a trend. So that's element number 1 for a number 2 signal, is that you have to have something preceding it that looks like a trend. Now, we discussed yesterday the easiest way to define a trend is with higher highs and higher lows. So here's a swing high, here's a swing low. The market makes a higher high and it starts to make higher swing lows. So at this point, you could say the market is in an uptrend. Once the market starts to trade below and you start to reverse, where you're making lower highs and lower lows, now all of a sudden the market is in a downtrend. All right, so if it looks like you have something resembling a trend, now you can be on the alert for a number 2 signal. Now, I'll warn you, counter trend signals in the face of a strong trend are a good way to lose money because the trend normally trumps all. However, there will be times when a number 2 signal will offer you a decent opportunity. So first and foremost, you have to have a trend or something resembling a trend. The second component of a number 2 signal is the test of the extreme. That's that little telltale failure signal that we look for. Some traders call it a 1, 2, 3 top. Some call it an M or W formation, and the reasons for that are fairly obvious. But regardless of how you look at it, a test of the extreme shows you a market's inability to continue with the previous trend. Once that happens, and once again the programming parameters are met, you will produce a number 2 signal to short. Just as an aside, the number 2 signals tend to be more reliable when your trading band gets much broader. So at this point, you can see the trading band, the band counter says the trading band's only about 30 ticks broad. That's not that wide. When the trading band gets to be 40 to 70 ticks broad, certainly anything above 70 ticks, you really open up the market to a stronger reversal opportunity. The target for the number 2 signal tends to be the hard edge of the trading band, the lower edge, or the further edge, I should say, because in a downtrend, we would be looking for the upper band. In an uptrend, we're looking at the lowest band. And it looks like this one made you sweat a little bit, but eventually ended up heading a little bit lower. So number 2 signals, you have to be selective. Your Raptor programming also, you can make the system more sensitive to number 2 signals. So you find your Raptor, and then you go down here to where it says SE parameters. So signal parameters SE. This stands for soft edge. That's your number 2 signal. The defaults, the extreme retest sensitivity is set at 1.01. If you would like more signals, make that number larger. I find that if you go up in quarter points, it usually works all right. My alternative to the default is 1.25. But more often than not, I'll just stay with the default. Like I said, I'm not really looking for more counter trend opportunities, but if the right ones present themselves, it could be a good opportunity to buy or sell. The minimum retest bar setup is the second value, and the smaller this value, the more signals you will produce, counter trend signals. But for the most part, I stay with the defaults. All right, well, looks like we're struggling a little bit to the upside. Come on, give me a signal to short, you stinkers. Back to the median line now. And the low of the morning. Okay, good. There's a little bit of a pushback. Next signal we get, you could interpret as an early number 1 signal. The cloud's not fully crossed yet. The Falcon should give us a signal, and it looks like the hawk here already getting ready for a first micro macro cross. Of course, we're in the hard edge, so this is where we anticipate a reaction. Okay, we're gonna get a trend change / late filter entry signal here on the Falcon. I'm just gonna put my just in case order to short below the low. In case something unexpected happens here and the market tanks before I get a chance to short it. They're fighting it out here around this whole 83.25 zone. Don't be surprised if that crops up as one of our support and resistance numbers tomorrow. Oh, didn't get the trend change. All right, we can cancel that. This is an important push by the buyers. There's going to be more than a few traders looking at this and calling this a sideways range. This now the breakout. Somewhere through here, we'll get a retest. If they lose their grip on this rally, the market's definitely poised for something lower. All right, so here's the breakout. There's now a couple of bars counter. I can put my just in case order to buy above here. So if the market's strong enough to keep going, what we're witnessing right now is a retest of the breakout. We'll see whether the buyers have what it takes. Now, normally I like to see 2 bars counter in each direction, but you know what? I am going to look to short below this bar. It should, oh no, I was going to say, it should translate actually into a number 2 signal here on the Falcon, on the Raptor. Speaking of number 2 signals. So you can, as you use these tools, you can begin to anticipate them. The Bollinger Suite is starting to turn over here a little bit. We have something resembling a trend. We're getting higher highs, higher lows for the most part. We did break this swing low back here, but we weren't able to break that swing low. But at this point, we now have a test of the extreme, don't we? The better short is below this low. In case you're wondering. Okay, so you see the number 2 signal is printing. Now, it didn't print as a number 2 signal. Had I increased the sensitivity, that would have definitely become a number 2 signal. But visually, it is still a number 2 signal. Why did it not? Well, I have a feeling that there were maybe a few too many bars between this retest and that high. All right, at this point, I'll bring the trade down to break even. And this is actually, well, no, we're still in scalp mode. I was going to say this is the kind of trade that you may want to try to run out a little bit, because after our profit target, the next stop is the swing low down here. And if that breaks, well, then you're probably heading down to primary support. If I could stop from getting tagged at break even all the time. I'll throw my just in case order to sell below here again. Well, actually, I don't even need to do that one. I could do it right around there even. Maybe won't make it quite as tight. Okay, so that should coincide with the trend change signal that's going to develop here on the Falcon. We're working a little bit of a rule of 3 here on the Eagle. We're going to produce an early cloud crossover. On the Raptor. Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. Ray says the fair market price 83.14 and a quarter. So that's where your VWAP is hanging out. And this is a rather deep retrace, but you could put your just in case order to buy. You could leave it there above the high. So we had the breakout, we have the retest, we have a couple of bars bullish, a couple of bars bearish. So you could frame up the market this way for a breakout. Only part that gives me pause is the retrace was a little bit deep. We went deep back inside this trading range and failed to take the market lower. What should have happened after this little breakout retest up here is we should have seen the sellers take the market back to the lows and challenge the bottom end. That did not happen. So that makes me a little leery, a little suspicious. But I got both sides of the trade covered, so we'll see. We're sandwiched pretty good right now between the primary resistance and the median line. If we break primary resistance, there's a good chance we're going to move two zones. That's very ambitious. Even the first resistance zone is a very, very wide target. But I'll throw it in there so we have it as a reference. Look at the sellers ganging up now that we've breached the high. The other week when we were talking about profit targets and measured moves and such, I introduced you also to the notion of the risk-reward ratio, and not the one that you normally hear about. Let's see what a one-to-one risk-reward would look like. Oh, well, look at that. That would actually bring us pretty darn close to where we're looking. I don't want to be the last one out. So we'll see whether we can recover to this 83.43, 83.44 zone. Well, they're thinking about it. And the longer they think, the more aggressive I'm going to become with my stops. All right, so I'm going to start rolling below these bars with wicks to them, or tails to them. Cover the trade somewhere around the hard edge, I think. The first hard edge. Now, if you're going to try to give this trade every opportunity, your best stop is still back here. If we break this high, then we're almost, I would almost guarantee that we're going to make it up here to the profit target. You know what? We don't have much going on here this morning, so I'll roll the dice. No, I shouldn't do that. I'm setting a bad example. Stick with the plan. Because chances are good if I get tagged here, I'll get tagged down here also. In fact, is anything looking bearish? No, not yet. Come on, buyers. Okay, well, we're certainly, if we're going for our 5-point swing target, we're at the position now where we should roll the trade to break even. 4 points. Let's see if we get the 5. 4.5. 4 3/4. Who told the market what my profit objective was? Huh? If you're going to give this trade a chance, you could leave your stops here. But, there's nothing wrong with taking the break. Take the break even. I may have to start looking at tightening my profit objective as well. It's crazy. Well, I guess technically we filled the gap from the morning. Rather slow and plodding move higher out of the open. You can see here's another version of the breakout, the retest. When you see a market struggle, it breaks higher, deep retrace, breaks higher, another retrace. After the breakout, we're not making much in the way of progress. And what I mean by that is you can take a look, you can compare the relationship of each breakout. Well, this one's a little bit stronger, but you can definitely see how the momentum begins to fade when you consider that this back here was the initial breakout. So when I see this kind of thing going on, it always makes me wonder if this is a last gasp. Oh, well, and here we go. The Raptor certainly believes so. Okay, we were talking about number 2 signals. Let's take a look at doing this number 2 signal. And looks like I'll just short it at the market so it doesn't run too far away from me. Trading band, not really broad, only about 30 some odd ticks. Bollinger Suite is in sync, so that's good. Target is the hard edge, that's good. Stops above the high, obviously that's the best placement for these. Well, a decent move lower, and now all of a sudden they put the brakes on again. Knock it off. I'll roll my stops in above this bar. And if we can sneak a couple more ticks, well, you know what? There we go. We'll take it to break even. If it goes, it goes. Otherwise, might as well pay the broker another commission. Now, as I mentioned, there is room here. The median line is realistically the next target. If in fact the sellers are trying to take the market back. Oh, doggone it. No. Oh well. Yeah, sure. Now turn around and head lower. Go ahead, I dare you. Stinkers. Tap me out on that little swing. Well, we're kind of in a holding pattern again. As they sort themselves out. Isn't trading exciting? All right, getting a hard edge bounce, producing a number 3 signal. The Hawk and the Falcon a little conflicted at the moment, but a clear signal here. We got a red bar buy on the Eagle and a hard edge bounce on the Raptor. A second push opportunity, given how reluctant the market has been today, might be a good plan. Second push simply means we allow the signal to engage. We see the reaction, and then we use that reactionary bar as our entry point. What I'm waiting on is this one right here, the number 2 signal. All right. Now, again, it did not print as a number 2 signal. The number 2 signal actually printed back here, but it is a number 2 signal all the same. We have had something resembling an uptrend. This is a retest of the high. It's probably not, again, given the sensitivity settings that I have for the Raptor right now, it's not going to highlight it. If you want it to highlight it, you can increase those sensitivity settings. But I know from what happened before, to see a retest and yet another failure, another attempt to move the market lower, it just seems very probable at this point. Come on, get below that swing low, you stinkers. Really? All right. Well, we hit 3 points, which tends to be my break-even roll. There we go. Okay, looks like we may finally get the market to get to our profit target. I'm going to roll a little more, protect some profit above the candle with this wick to it. Oh, you stinkers, you're kissing the profit target. Get down there. Get down there right now. Here, we'll throw some trend lines across here. Hold it down. Oh, darn it, I was too late. Wow, 3 trades, 3 break-even trades. Well, better than 3 losses, but not as, for the sake of 1 or 2 ticks, I'm left hanging. So the buyers really liking this 83, 20, 21, 22 zone. They keep digging in their heels at that point. All right, let's see what gives. We might have to give the buyers one more chance. Shoot, am I going to be too late now on that rally? Doggone it. Okay, they're getting back up here toward the top end. I was eyeing this red bar buy, but I didn't have the nerve to take it. All right, next signal, you can see we're going to get a trend change signal here on the Falcon. We're going to get a first micro macro cross on the Hawk. The Raptor is also got the warning dots here. So the next signal that will print will be a number 1 signal, clouds crossing, going from bearish to bullish. Here's the pullback. I can anticipate, actually, you know what? I'll buy it above that swing high. I'll give it, or here, I can even just do this. There. Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready, coach. Same thing, same sideways mess that we've been looking at since the open. The buyers make a rally and fail. Sellers make a rally and fail. I'm still leaning slightly toward the sellers, but we'll see here. Maybe the buyers are going to prove me wrong. We still only have the warning dots. Do I still only have warning dots on the Falcon? No, the Falcon actually producing a signal already. Odd that the Raptor didn't coincide with that. All right, well, it looks like we did get the number one signal, and they filled me on the breakout. I'll get my stop loss order in. And my original target when I was looking at that bigger move was up here around the 83.45 zone. So I will leave that in play. You know what? They've been shutting me out at my profit target. So maybe it will be enough just to do my profit target. Might be nice to hit a profit target. Well, here we are. trying to get higher. All right, there we go. We're at 3.25. Get the trade up there to break even and oh, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. They hit my profit target. Wow. Okay. Oh, and it looks like they're probably going to get up here to the resistance zone or somewhere close to it. Well, I'm glad I was able to pick up at least. Well, I guess overall I shouldn't complain. We had 4 trades, 3 at break even, 1 hit the profit target. Not too much wrong with that. Ron says there's a pivot at 83.42. Well, we'll see. Those floor pivots are, you got to wonder whether they actually influence the market or whether it's just one of those self-fulfilling prophecies. But I suppose at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. All right, gang. Speaking of end of the day, I'm going to have to close the room up. And we'll do this again tomorrow. If you're going to continue trading today, the buyers obviously still seem to have control of the market. So you're going to want to stay more bullish, I think. But they're laboring. There's no question the sellers are going to try to stomp them somewhere through the session. But I think so long as you're looking at taking profit targets, you're probably going to do okay. All right. I'll catch you tomorrow. Bye for now.